Well, thank you for coming to your PUNS interview, Mrs.
Thank
Visconti,
you.
right?
Yes.
And you must be Grayson.
Can you say hi?
You want to shake my hand or you want to do a fist bump?
Knuckles.
Oh, even better, Knuckles. Well, thank you for coming. My name is Juan Aponte. I'm a Director of Services with Community Alternatives Unlimited.
Okay.
And thank you for making your appointment for the PUNS. And first of all, I'm just curious, who referred you to CAU for the PUNS?
Our school district had told us a little bit about the PUNS, but I don't really know much about it. They
Okay.
just told me to come and sign up.
Don't worry about that. I'll tell you anything you need to know about the PUNS.
Okay.
PUNS stands for Prioritization of Urgency of Need for Services.
Okay.
Most people call it a waiting list. The state doesn't like to call it a waiting list. It's essentially a database.
Okay.
Was created back in 2003, and the implementation began in 2004.
Okay.
And for the past 12 years already. We have independent service coordinations agencies like ours have been working together with the state in order to meet with families face to face and document their needs, met needs and unmet needs in the database.
Okay.
And the database will be used in the future to plan for services and also authorize funding when the funding is available.
So he could potentially get more services later on.
Yes.
Okay.
I think the best way, when I talk to families about PUNS, the best way, if you have a child in special education, and how old is Grayson? 5?
5.
6? Okay, 5. The best way to look at this is I am trying to document his needs in a system outside of special education because, as you know, as a mom, special education is the only service that is mandated by law. So the more agencies you bring into his life, the more people are going to know who Grayson Visconti is.
Okay.
Now, the form is pretty simple. We'll be asking a lot of questions, but typically what we do is we fill out your information, and I think because you made the appointment and we did an intake, some of the information was already pre-filled.
Okay.
So I just want to confirm, certain information here, like your address. You live at 9999 Maple Street in Chicago?
Yes.
Okay. And let me see right here. Oh, by the way, did you bring the information that I requested for the interview?
Yes. I brought his birth certificate,
Excellent.
his social security card,
Very nice.
his initial assessments
Okay.
privately and from the school, and his IEP.
Okay. So, correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Visconti, but Grayson is receiving special education services as a young individual with autism, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is exactly what we need.
Okay.
And the reason why we ask for this type of information, Mrs. Visconti, so that you know, and Grayson, so that you know, is because the PUNS is part of the Department of Human Services Division of Developmental Disabilities. So everyone who enrolls in PUNS, we have to make sure the person has an intellectual or developmental disability. Looking at the IEP, he does meet criteria, so he can be enrolled in the PUNS.
Oh, so that's like proof of his disability.
Confirmation that he has a developmental disability,
Okay.
correct. The next thing that we will do here during the interview, and feel free to ask as many questions as possible.
Okay.
Is the most important piece of the PUNS is there are 3 different things that we do. Documenting existing supports. Page number 3, as you can see, is clinical information and demographic information.
Okay.
And because you called us ahead of time, we were able to put that in the computer. So it does confirm your address,
Okay.
your telephone number, and it also confirms Grayson's diagnosis of autism.
Okay.
Page number 5 or 4 is typically what we fill out the last. I personally like to start out with existing supports,
Okay.
what kinds of services Grayson receives at the moment, which I'm assuming is mostly special education related services, right?
Correct.
And then, as you can see here, you get existing supports, and we would be glad to document exactly what he needs.
Okay.
The next section that we're going to be talking about is supports needed.
Okay.
What kinds of services you, Mom, and Mr. Visconti, your husband, think that he will benefit from, whether the state provides funding or not. So this is
so
the
for the
area.
future.
Correct. Yeah, correct. This is the area where you say, I need X, Y, and Z, and I don't care if there is no funding available, but I think these are things that my child needs.
Okay.
And then last but not least, then we go back to page 4, which is talking about the different categories of PUNS. You talk about emergency need, critical need, and planning for need. Typically speaking, when you have a 5-year-old student with almost 17 years left of special education, your planning for need means little Grayson needs services more than 2 years away, but less than 5. Those are people, in your case, probably, that are planning for the future. The next category is critical, and that means for some reason, Grayson needs services within a year. That could be because of a number of things. It could be because of the poor health of the caregivers. It could be because of behavioral situations or behavioral issues in the home, and you need something ASAP.
Okay.
Or
Does that mean
within a
that I
year.
get it?
No, that means that we help you apply.
Okay.
Okay, but we're documenting first, and then of course the last category is emergency, meaning you need something yesterday, whether it is in-home supports or services outside of the home immediately. That is like the most critical category. So you got planning for need between 2 and 5 years, critical within a year, and then emergency is an emergency. Okay, so if you don't mind, why don't we just go ahead and start completing some of this information.
Sure.
And I'm assuming little Grayson is attending special education right now, right?
Correct.
Okay. So which school is he attending right now?
Whitney Keller.
Okay. Whitney Keller Elementary. Okay. Is he receiving any of the following services? Physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech and language?
He has speech and OT in his IEP minutes, and then he has speech and OT privately.
All right.
Outside of school.
All right. Any other types of, about respite supports?
We do have respite hours from Countryside.
Okay. How many hours a month?
Currently, we have up to 20, although we have a hard time using them.
20 hours a month. Okay. Why is that, if I may ask?
Our worker is not always available, or there's times when we just get really busy and I don't necessarily think to use it. We have an older child, so we try to do a lot of things together as a family on the weekend. So.
Okay. Any other services as far as assistive technology at school? Does he have any adaptive equipment, anything that he uses for speech?
He has an iPad for speech therapy. It has the Pro Loquo app on it.
Okay. Any other types of services aside from special education, respite supports, anything else? You got private therapists that come to the house, right? Or you go through that?
He has speech and OT at an agency, but he also has in-home ABA supports.
Okay.
Yeah, he's been in ABA for about a year and a half, almost 2 years.
Okay. Transportation-wise, how does he get to and from school?
He does take the bus to school.
Okay, school bus. Okay. Alrighty. And then page 9, it's talking about vocational and other structured activities because it's a child doesn't apply, so we always.
So that's for later.
Right.
Okay.
Same thing with residential supports. He lives at home, so we cross that out. The next page would be support. This is a very important category because it talks about his future planning. What do you and your husband envision for your son as he gets older? And again, regardless of funding availability, do you think he needs behavioral supports?
Yes.
Okay. How about, you mentioned OT and speech. Do you think he needs more than what you're able to pay for and what you're able to receive through school?
I mean, if he could have more, that would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think at this age it's ever enough, but.
Okay. Anything else that you can think of that says you can see There is other.
What is the personal support?
Personal support typically is access to, is similar to respite work.
Okay.
And you're already getting 20 hours. If you think that he would continue to benefit from that or more hours, we can check it, certainly.
I think if he could access it one day, that would be very helpful.
Right. Okay. Now, there's an area, of course, vocational. I don't think it does apply right now because it's a young child. How about residential supports in the future? What is your vision as a parent for Grayson? 5 years old, diagnosis with autism. Is your vision as a parent to keep him at home with supports, or do you envision him in some type of residential program in the future?
I know he'll need it one day,
Okay.
and I think it would be a good thing for him to have one day, but we would like to keep him at home as long as possible.
So I'm going to leave this blank.
Okay.
Okay, now then we go back after documenting existing supports and services, documenting the supports needed. Then, Mrs. Visconti, the next part of the PUNS interview will be choosing a category. By the way, for the purpose of the PUNS interview, your date of birth
1/15/80,
and the date of birth of your husband.
3/25/74.
74. Okay. Let me see what else. And are there any health issues with you or your husband?
No.
Okay. The reason why we ask that is not because we want to be personal. It's because the more the state typically looks at you and your husband as the primary caregivers of your child with special needs. So the more serious health issues that somebody has, that certainly impacts your ability to take care of your son. So when there are no behavioral issues with him, or significant health issues with the family, I'm leaning towards the planning for need category, meaning you don't need services right now, but you would need services if something were to happen to you or your husband as a caregiver.
So if we started having health issues, or we found that he was having so many behavioral issues, what would we do at that point?
You can the way the PUNS works, the first interview that we do, Mrs. Visconti and Grayson, is face-to-face. And we bring the information, we bring the person, we talk. We document needs, existing supports needs, then we pick a category. Let's say at the end of this interview, we mark planning for need, meaning everything is fine at home, he's got enough support, you need something more than 2 years away, less than 5. And things do change. You get to update the PUNS every year too. And that is the importance of signing up for PUNS.
Okay.
You're documenting your needs, but then you're also updating every year because as we all know, things do change in a family home. We don't plan for a crisis. In my experience, I have seen people going from planning for need to critical very quickly because of health issues with families.
I think at this point we feel pretty confident that we can care for him and he has adequate supports.
Okay, so then what we would check here would be planning for need. Number one would be the person, Grayson, is not currently in need of services but will need service if something happens to the caregiver. That would be you or your husband.
Okay.
Typically speaking, I also mark number 8 because any family that we work with and any family that we try to support always needs increased supports. So we always check that. And then I also put together a list of resources for you. And I'm glad that you're already utilizing respite care with your local agency, which is really good. But another thing that you may want to check into is probably special recreation services.
Oh, okay. You know, we do get the brochure from his school.
Okay.
But because he does his ABA, we haven't really looked into it.
But this is for you. Whenever you and your husband are ready to pursue that, I mean, it's always good to have resources available.
Okay.
So that, again, the PUNS is going to be in the waiting list or in the database. And again, if something comes up, you don't have to wait a year to update the PUNS.
Okay.
If an emerging crisis were to happen, feel free to call us.
So I would just call the main number?
Correct.
Okay.
And then before you leave, of course, if I could have you sign and then write your telephone number so we can be reached. My number is right here for your
Okay.
information. And then you can sign here as a guardian, and I'll be glad to make you a copy of the
Okay,
PUNS.
so I'll take a copy with me.
Correct.
Okay. So as he gets older, does this become more important then, or how does it work for the future?
Absolutely, because right now the state is doing, the lotteries that they're doing are targeting solely adults
Why?
through a class action lawsuit called Ligas, which, you feel free to Google it, and
Okay.
it will give you all the information that you need on it. But kids have been selected. Typically, when a kid goes into some type of emerging crisis, what we do as a director of case management services with our agency at CAU, if somebody's reaching a crisis point, we don't wait for a family to get selected from a lottery, which is, right now they have about 19,000 people.
Okay.
So we open a case and we try to work with families to apply for crisis funding so that they can access at least the in-home supports that you were talking about earlier.
Okay.
Because that right now remains the vision of your family, to keep Grayson at home with supports.
Correct.
So, and that's another reason why we gather information, because look at this as our agency building a file for your son in the future. It's a lot easier to work a case as it becomes a crisis when we already have records on him.
Okay.
PUNS also becomes part of the future referral packet for services. So let's say you're in the PUNS, something happens in the home, Grayson and his family go into crisis mode. He's already in the PUNS. And PUNS becomes part of the referral and the crisis application that we will use in the future. So whether it is now or whether it is 15 years from now or whenever the crisis hits, he will be in the system, which is a good thing to have.
So will you call me next year to update it?
You will be receiving a letter from the Department of Human Services. Probably, if we were to enter the information in the PUNS today, typically 30 to 45 days after you sign up for the PUNS, you should be getting a letter saying Grayson Visconti. I can see my friend is getting a little animated.
Yes.
So Grayson, if you need a break, that's fine.
Kristen, do you want to walk over there?
Yeah, this happens. Don't worry about it, Mrs. Visconti. This happens quite a bit.
Okay.
And I already saw him face to face, so he doesn't have to stay. We're almost finished. You're doing so well, buddy.
Okay, go over there. Go see Mary.
So as needs do change, that is the significance of updating the PUNS, because you may be in the planning for need category today, but then if something critical happens and we don't know about it and you don't update, then we won't be able to change categories. If everything goes well in his life and everything is fine, Grayson right now is in planning for need because he's 5 years old. But the same Grayson at 19 years of age automatically should be moving into the critical need category. Why? Because as you can see here, one of the boxes that we check under critical need is the person has graduated or will be leaving school within 3 years. That will make him critical. Even if he has no behavioral challenges, everything's fine, you have enough supports, automatically people can move from one category to the next. And God forbid something happens in the home that is considered an emergency, then he could jump from planning to emergency, meaning you can't wait for a lottery selection. You have to get a
So
case
it's
manager.
really important to keep it updated.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
I
call the main number
You
to
will-
do that?
What will happen first is you will get a letter from the Department of Human Services Division of Developmental Disabilities reminding you that, or it's a confirmation letter that Grayson Visconti was enrolled in the PUNS.
Oh, okay.
Probably 2 months prior to the anniversary date of the PUNS, you're going to be getting another letter from DHS, or you should be getting another letter from DHS Division of DD reminding you to update the PUNS.
Okay.
So either, and that's when you initiate the call to update the PUNS.
Do I send more records in?
No, we're good.
Okay.
We have enough records here to confirm eligibility as a person with a developmental disability, so this is enough.
Should I keep his records on my own?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think the more records you have, the better.
Okay.
But this is very good for now.
Okay.
We want to make sure that he meets criteria, so in the event he gets selected and we have to do a formal screening, we want to make sure that he's going to get the service, and it will be hard and heartbreaking to tell you later that he doesn't meet criteria. So that's why we ask for more records that is necessary.
So what does selected mean?
Selected means you will get a letter that if the state does a lottery selection or a PUNS selection, as they call it, and his name gets picked. That means that we will still have to do a formal screening. He'll get assigned a case manager, but technically speaking, you don't have to justify crisis need for the service, which is what we do every day. There are two ways of getting funding with the Department of Human Services Division of Developmental Disabilities. It's either the PUNS way, it's the non-crisis way, your name gets selected, you get services, or what we do every day as case coordinators, which is justifying crisis need for services.
Okay.
And the definition of crisis, unfortunately, is you would have to be at imminent risk of abuse, neglect, or homelessness, which not many families do meet.
Oh, that's not us.
So that's another reason for enrolling in PUNS too, because you will be able to get your name picked as a lottery.
So I'm preparing for his future,
Yeah,
essentially.
just
okay.
planning for the future.
Okay.
Unless something drastic happens in the home. Do you have any other questions?
No, it's good to know that I can call if I need to.
Right.
But then it's also my job to call.
Absolutely, and my name
Every year.
and number are listed on the form.
Okay.
So you feel free. This is our central number, but you can ask for me because I'm the one who completed the PUNS face to face.
Okay.
And we will have a PUNS file for Grayson here. So every year, the updating part is the important thing. The updating part is done by the phone.
Okay, so I don't have to come back
It's
in.
by phone, yes.
Okay.
Unless you like to, but it's by phone.
Okay. So do I just have to sign it again?
No.
You'll send it to me?
What will happen is somebody from our intake department will review the previous application or the previous PUNS enrollment form to make sure nothing has changed in his life. And they will send you the signature sheet for you to sign and return back to us, yes.
Okay. Okay. So nothing happens today. I don't get anything today.
No.
But
no.
it's just for the future.
We're documenting his needs, which we did, and then we chose a category we're planning for the future.
Okay.
And then it is up to the family to let us know otherwise, because things do change in the home.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank
It's
you.
so nice to meet you. And
Nice to
again,
meet you too.
I'll get you a copy before you leave so that you can have it for the update next year, okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.